never be a memory.
And what's going on, Read My Lips people? We are back. So, I'm exhausted. Long day. Very long day. Long day tomorrow, too. But I gotta report on something. My notifications have been blowing up. My DMs have been blowing up. There's a lot of confusion. There's some outrage. And I just got to talk about it. So the news that has been spreading, the headlines that have been going around is that Yang feels the burn. This is what people are saying. And it's been all over social media. It's been all over social media. Here we are trying to get, hashtag get Yang on Oprah, and, Dave Chappelle's doing his thing, which is originally what I was supposed to be reporting about tonight. So I'll report on that tomorrow. Dave Chappelle's doing his thing and just, making movement, right? Growth within the campaign and getting things done, getting shit done. And then this came out of nowhere and has been snatching headlines. So when it first came to my attention, it was in the form of Bernie Bros are smearing Yang, and they're putting out this false, fake report that Andrew Yang is telling Yang Gang to go support Bernie Sanders. Now, personally, I cannot stand the beef between Yang Gang and Bernie Sanders supporters. It fucking irritates me to no end. We're allowed to disagree on policy, but like all that other shit is just fucking trivial and ridiculous. And yeah, Bernie Sanders supporters are toxic. Yes, of course, there's some toxic supporters in the Sanders fan base, of course. In all of the fan bases there are, in every single one. I've gotten threats from all of them. So yes, of course, the reason that Yang Gang and Sanders beef so much is because they were in the same pool, which actually goes back to what I'm talking about in this report. A lot of the Sanders supporters were in the same pool, but Yang has a broad coalition of people. So, Sanders supporters, disenfranchised Trump supporters, etc. But I had to make sure and research that this definitely came from the Sanders campaign or from supporters. I had to do my research, and it had nothing to do with Sanders supporters at all. Didn't come from them at all, which is what I figured. But you can't put anything past anybody. So this came from Bloomberg News, ironically. So Bloomberg News put out a big headline saying Andrew Yang says supporters may go to Sanders in Iowa caucus, which is still different from what I originally heard and saw. There were two articles saying that Yang is telling his supporters to go to Bernie Sanders. Those are false articles. But right from the source, right from the Bloomberg article, this is what they're saying. And progressive YouTubers couldn't wait to jump on it. They couldn't wait to jump on it. They couldn't wait. Beat me to the punch. They couldn't fucking wait to jump on it. Like, yes. Yang is, even goes as far to say Yang is pretty much endorsing Bernie. That's not fucking true. That's not true. Where'd you come up with that? In no way, shape, or form is Yang endorsing Bernie. You made that up. That is made up. That's what you want it to be. As a matter of fact, I have a clip for you. Let's take a look.
2020 candidate Andrew Yang joined a Bloomberg roundtable to discuss, of course, the race, but also a topic that came up, Iowa. So right now, Andrew Yang is polling at about 3% in Iowa. You need 15% in a given state to actually win delegates. So he appeared to indicate here that during the caucus process, if he's not able to win the 15% necessary for delegates, that his support could go to Bernie Sanders. So let me share this article here. Andrew Yang said he won't be surprised if his voters end up supporting Bernie Sanders in later rounds of the Iowa caucus voting, a development that could strengthen Sanders' already surging campaign in the state. Speaking at a Bloomberg News reporter roundtable in Des Moines, Yang said there is an overlap between his supporters and those of the progressive Vermont senator. Quote, I think that Bernie and I do have a lot of overlap in support, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if many of our supporters head in that direction, he said. So this is almost an endorsement at this point. I mean, as a candidate, you don't say something like this unless you are perfectly okay with your voters going to that candidate. So Yang here he's being realistic because he knows the math. He knows if he's polling at 3%, he's unlikely to win any delegates in the state. So I think it makes total sense for his supporters to go to Bernie Sanders during the caucus process. So, in case you don't know, caucuses are different than primaries. In caucuses, you actually have to be engaged and involved there for a couple hours. And there's sort of like this multi-level process where you can move your support over to a different candidate if your candidate isn't able to get the amount of support that's needed to win delegates. So in that case, in this scenario, his supporters could absolutely go to Bernie Sanders because honestly, where else are they going to go? Are they going to go to Joe Biden? Are they going to go to Warren? Are they going to go to Buttigieg? I mean, Andrew Yang and Sanders, I think, have a lot of crossover appeal because these are two candidates that are essentially political outsiders. They are anti-establishment candidates. I would say Bernie more so, but Andrew Yang still is clearly a political outsider. So he is somebody here who speaks to many of the same issues that Bernie speaks to. So, while they have maybe different solutions in many cases, I think they both have the correct analysis of what the problem is in the country. And I think 100% Bernie Sanders and his supporters during the caucus process can utilize that to bring over Yang supporters to support Sanders in the caucus and, net Sanders even more support than what we're currently seeing right now in polling. So, look, as a guy who openly supports Bernie Sanders, I 100% back this. I completely welcome the Yang Gang. I mean, this is why the Sanders movement is this mass movement of people. We welcome people into the movement. If you want to, help to lift people up, if you want to guarantee people health care, cancel student debt, take on climate change with a serious plan, then the Sanders movement welcomes you. And I'm somebody who can't even vote for Sanders, but I'm able to recognize the impact that a Sanders presidency would have globally. So look, I've had my criticisms of Andrew Yang as I have of all the candidates, but in this scenario here, I think Andrew Yang is doing the right thing. And I hope eventually this leads to a Yang endorsement for Bernie Sanders.
So, yeah, he's head over heels, very, very ecstatic that, Yang said this, and Yang's basically endorsing Bernie. You couldn't be more wrong. But you know that, but you just want to get this out there. You want to put that into the air, right? So the article says this. Andrew Yang says supporters may go to Sanders in Iowa. Yang spoke to reporters at a roundtable before Iowa votes. Sanders' surging campaign could be strengthened by Yang support. So I've seen other Yang YouTubers trying to find that video. It's not the NPR video. It's not a video from the past because Bloomberg is claiming this is right before the Iowa votes. So this is a recent roundtable interview. So we don't even know if it's out and about for people to see. So looking for that particular interview online, you're probably not going to find it. And the video, I'm going to put a link in the description to the article from Bloomberg, but the video they have on their website, it makes it seem like that's the video he says it in. I watched the whole 10-minute video. He didn't say anything like that in there. Even in their URL at the top, in the description in the URL is Yang says supporters may go to Sanders and Iowa caucus. But in the video they have on their website, on their page, doesn't say anything like that. They asked about the coronavirus. It's a very much recent video. They asked about, very relevant topics, but none of it says what this article is claiming. So I'm just going to delve into it a little bit. Andrew Yang said he wouldn't be surprised if his voters end up supporting Bernie Sanders in later rounds of the Iowa caucus voting, a development that could strengthen Sanders' already surging campaign in the state. Speaking at a Bloomberg News reporter roundtable in Des Moines, Yang said there's an overlap between his supporters and those of the progressive Vermont senator. I think that Bernie and I do have a lot of overlap in support, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if many of our supporters head in that direction, he said. Now, let's just pause for a second. That quote isn't necessarily wrong, okay? That quote that he's saying isn't necessarily wrong. Let's not all stop and pretend that Yang is stupid. Just because we may not necessarily like what we're hearing, we're not all going to be like, Yang's fucking stupid. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to play that game. So, if he's saying it, he knows what the fuck he's talking about. Now, this is all if Yang is saying it. I don't know how much I trust this source. I don't fucking trust Bloomberg for shit. But this quote isn't necessarily wrong. Because Yang does have overlap with Sanders supporters. Yang has overlap with Trump supporters. He has a very diverse coalition of supporters in general. Okay? But what I also know is there are some Yang or bust people. I kind of was the same way in 2016. I was Bernie or bust. Especially when I saw that they were screwing him over. A lot of that exists in the Yang gang. Where if it ain't Yang, they don't fucking want it. I say many times on my channel, Yang's my number 1, Bernie's my number 2, Toasty's my number 3. And I get quite often in the comment section, I don't have a fucking number 2, and I don't have a number 3. It's Yang or nobody. Okay? So Yang's not wrong. There are some people that would absolutely vote for Bernie Sanders in lieu of the situation that Yang didn't get through. But there is still plenty of people that wouldn't vote for anybody, that just wouldn't switch. It's Yang or bust. Fucking Russell's one of them. My man Russell, my guy Russell. He's not voting for another fucking Democrat. It's not happening. Right? It's Yang or nobody. So while that sentiment is true, I don't think it'll be as many people going to Sanders as they're trying to put on here. Would there be some? Of course. In the words of Cenk Uygur, of course! Yes, there'd be some. But there would be a large chunk that would not cross over, especially the people that are vested. Like, even some of those used to be Sanders supporters that, at one point would have switched over. Some of those people aren't even going to switch over because they've invested so much time in this campaign. Blood, sweat, tears, money. People donate. I just saw a guy donating the last of his fucking $4. There's no money the rest of the goddamn week. Giving $4 he's invested to the campaign, right? There are people that are not going to switch over. I'm not going to say there aren't some, right? And I don't have the numbers on how many. But, there are people that just wouldn't. One of the first things I did on the community tab, I put, if Andrew Yang didn't get through, would you A, vote for the Democratic nominee, not vote at all, or vote for Donald Trump? And not vote at all won overwhelmingly. I think it was like 60%. Okay? So, calm down, Bloomberg. At Monday's caucuses, Iowans will conduct a first round to pick their favorite candidate. Any candidate who falls short for the required support can direct his or her supporters back to a rival in the second round. Nothing new. This is how it works. Yang said that several candidates whom he would not name have reached out to his campaign about supporting them. And I 100% believe that. because there's another article in the Washington Post which states Biden, Sanders, allies have spoken to Andrew's campaign about caucus night cooperation. Now, let me just interrupt this here for a second. All on Twitter and on social media, I saw a lot of outrage. And I did some digging, and I'm like, because Yang Gang can get enthused, and they can get colorful in their rhetoric. But they were like really angry, really fucking angry. And I did some research, and like a lot of those people were Pete Buttigieg supporters. All fucking jokes aside, spreading misinformation, fueling the fire of, the kind of beef that, Yang Gang and fucking, Sanders supporters have, Bernie Bros, fueling that fire and spreading misinformation. So I implore you, if you're seeing stuff and you're seeing people retweet this and quote things and going on social media, on Twitter, go and check their profile. Because I had to do that to a couple people, and they were Pete Buttigieg supporters. One was a big Pete Buttigieg supporter. Even Kimmy Avery, she, is a big Yang Gang supporter. She's been on my channel. I've seen her on other Yang Gang's channel. Even she realized one of them was a Pete troll. She even, quoted it. So, before you immediately try to, slit the throat of Sanders supporters next or whoever, double check who it is. Because that was the perfect example of somebody trying to stir the fire. But the Washington Post says allies of former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Sanders have spoken with officials and entrepreneur Andrew Yang's presidential campaign about a deal for cooperation from their supporters on a caucus night, according to two people familiar with the talks. So I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that they're going to try to get him to, give his support to one of them. I don't doubt that at all. But let's just be clear. When this was being spread, what they were saying was that Andrew Yang tells his supporters to vote for Bernie Sanders. So that's not true. Let's just get that out of the way. I know we're a little bit into it already, but let's just get that out of the way. Andrew Yang never told his supporters to go vote for Bernie Sanders. That just didn't happen, right? If anything, he said some of his supporters might fall into that pool. But I don't know if it's the Washington Post article or the Bloomberg article, I'm going to find it. But Yang said very clearly, he doesn't control his supporters. They are their own free thinkers, and they're going to go whichever way they feel free to. He can't make them do that, right? So, he can't go on a podium and say, look, vote for Bernie because, no. He just spent his whole campaign saying those were ideas of the old, right? So he's not going to stand on a podium and tell you to go back to those ideas of the old. That just doesn't make sense, right? And don't get me wrong, Andrew Yang likes Bernie Sanders. He said this many times in his campaign. He was pro-Bernie in 2015, 2016. But, he says himself, he can't control where his fucking supporters go. You don't control us. And that's the whole thing. We go where our heart tells us to go. We go where our brain tells us to go. You can't control us like puppets on a string. You're not Ultron. So the Washington Post goes on to say, candidates who do not earn support from at least 15% of those in the room are not considered viable, and they do not earn delegates. Their backers are free to leave or to align with another candidate. That can lead to negotiations between campaigns over the fate of the supporters of non-viable candidates. Biden, Sanders, Buttigieg, and Warren have all been locked up at the top of recent Iowa polling. I haven't seen Elizabeth Warren at the top of any fucking Iowa polling. You consider her at the top? With Senator Amy Klobuchar gaining momentum. I mean, she's gained a spark, but from them and other candidates, even minimal growth in support could be meaningful in the final portioning of the delegates. So Yang spoke frankly on Wednesday about caucus strategy, but also acknowledged the limitations of sharing supporters. He goes on to say, the people who support my campaign are very diverse. Yang said at a breakfast hosted by Bloomberg News. I'd have a very hard time getting them to do anything they're not naturally inclined to do. I think most people are going to show up on caucus night with a few choices in mind. He confirmed at the Bloomberg breakfast that his campaign had been approached by more than one competitor. When pressed on where he thought his supporters would go, he was more than forthright. I think many of my supporters would naturally head to Bernie, Yang said. I think that Bernie and I do have a lot of overlapping support. Biden's team reached out to Yang campaign initially, according to two people who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to publicly discuss strategy. There was a later conversation in which Sanders and Yang team spoke about a possible deal, according to a person familiar with those discussions. So, look, is this fake news? Is this whole thing fake news? That's hard to say. That's hard to say because it's not just Bloomberg. It's the Washington Post putting this shit out too. What is fake news is that Andrew Yang said he told his Yang gang to go vote for Bernie. That's absolutely fake news. Did this conversation happen at this breakfast? Was it Humanity First that was looking for a video? I think it was Humanity First. I think I saw him looking for a video on it. You're not going to find that video. I don't think there's a video out that exists of the round table discussions or this breakfast dinner. I don't think it's for us to see. We're expected to just take their word for it that this happened. Now my question would be, if this was fake news, right? Now bear with me, guys. If this was all completely fake news, and it spread the way that it spread, Yang would come out 100% and say, yeah, this never fucking happened. Like, he's not one to bite his tongue in that sense. He'd be like, yeah, you guys completely made this up. It's like when he called out MSNBC, he would come out and say, yeah, this conversation never happened at this table. We never, said any of this like at breakfast. So if this is untrue, the campaign would come out and definitely speak against it. But I don't know exactly how true even Yang's words are, because all I can say is, from my point of view, from my perspective, most of the people on my channel, I think I finally hit over 3,000 subscribers. Thank you very much for that, guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Majority is Yang or bust. I mean, there are people that definitely say they'll go to a Bernie, if Yang doesn't get through because, they got to fucking get rid of Trump. They exist. But man, oh man, from what I'm seeing, from what I've experienced, from the Yang gang I've met face to face, in person, the passionate people I've come across, there is no second choice. You go to any of my videos, go in the comment section. You'll hear him say there is no second choice. It's Yang or nobody. So, Yang brother, I love you, and I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong. But it's probably a lot less people than you think that would go to Bernie. Not even that they necessarily hate Bernie. I know there's some people that watch my channel that aren't Bernie Sanders fans. And if you don't like Bernie, that's fine. Keep it substantive. Let's talk about policy, because I don't think he's a bad person. But there's a lot of people that, just from what I've seen, that if Yang don't get through, they're fucking done. They're not going to compromise. We're not doing the lesser of two evils shit no more. I hope, Biden and Sanders, they're going to Yang and they're saying, like, come, just drop out, like, or, tell your supporters. That's not how it's going to work. It's not going to play out how you think it's going to play out. It's not. A lot of the supporters are disenfranchised people that are done with this system. And Yang's ideas are so now and forthright that taking anything else is just going to leave a bad taste in their mouth. We did that already. We did that with Hillary. Left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And she still won't go away. So it's not going to happen again. It's very dangerous. I'd say Andrew Yang not getting through is a big assist to Donald Trump. And I'll say the same thing about Bernie. Like, if Bernie got screwed out of it again, that'd be a huge assist to Donald Trump. Let's just be clear. Bernie has a big coalition of people that fucking love him too. Like, those two candidates are very impactful. Very impactful. And the only way I could see Yang Gang even thinking about going to Sanders would be as if Yang was directly involved in a campaign and Sanders adopted some of Yang policies and yet let Yang be in charge of those policies. Like, I don't know how the fuck Sanders could be against UBI. You've got to adopt, because those two candidates are so crucial to this movement. So crucial to this movement. That's the only way. If Sanders came to Yang and Sanders is like, you know, because he's not going to fucking drop out. He's not going to drop out. Let's just be honest. So if he was like, you know, I want you aboard and, you know, I want you in charge of A, B, and C, you know, and let's get the Yang Gang over to the Bernie Bros and, you know, make it a coalition and do something along those lines. That's the only way. I see my comment section every day. I'd say at least a strong 80% is Yang or bust. You know, I know that's all relative. Maybe on somebody else's channel it's different. Maybe on, you know, Humanity First channel it's different. Maybe on Paget's channel it's different. I doubt it because we share a lot of the same subscribers. We're all in the same circles. You know, if you go to Mindful Skeptics and look in his comment section, you're going to see some of the same people that's on mine, right? And it's Yang or bust for a lot of people. It's Yang or bust. So, I don't know. I just wanted to speak on this really quick because I saw it blowing up. Yang did not tell his supporters to go vote for Sanders. Washington Post and Bloomberg dropped these articles, and I'll leave a link to the Washington Post one as well. I don't know. Do you think it's true? Let me know in the comment section if you think these articles are true. I got people, you know, tweeting at me like Yang sold out and blah 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 blah. Like, that's just, Yang didn't sell out. This is not the kind of guy. He tweeted, what was it, like 2 weeks ago? I'll drop out when I win. So yeah, there's no selling out. Woosah, don't let people from other parties stir the pot too much, and let's continue with our momentum. And it's not Bernie Bros putting this smear out. It's not the Bernie Bros. They did not do that. However, you do see the left, and you will see the far left wing YouTubers all dropping videos like the one I just put earlier, saying, "Look, Yang's endorsing Bernie." That is not true. That is a smear. That is a lie. That's not true. And honestly, it was David Doyle. You should take that video down. Yang is not endorsing Bernie Sanders. He didn't do an endorsement for Bernie Sanders. He was speaking mathematically where he thinks and logically where he thinks a decent amount of his supporters will go. Now, again, I'm saying from what I see, I don't see that. But obviously, Yang's come across much more supporters than I have. He's talked to much more people than I have. He's been around much more people than I have. He's traveled all over. So if Yang is saying this, I'm a lot more inclined to believe him, right? That he genuinely thinks, you know, a decent amount of his supporters will go to Bernie. That's what Yang thinks. But that's not an endorsement. And you're trying to force it to be. So I'm exhausted, and I got to edit this video. I just wanted to talk about it really quick because, again, I saw it was blowing up. I don't want to keep you guys. It's already like after 1 a.m. So I'll end it now. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you don't, let me know in the comment section why. I'm always down to talk about it. I have a Cash App, a PayPal, and a Venmo link in the description below. Please feel free to donate to the channel. Every little bit helps. Hopefully I'll be talking to you guys soon. Have a good one. Peace.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the wind crying